Today's guest is Andrew Och. He is the Director of Marketing at Planet Technologies and the President, Speaker, Documentarian, and Historian of the First Ladies Man, which is what I'm very much looking forward to learning more about. So thank you for joining me today, Andrew.
Thank you for having me, Jeremy. This is fantastic.
So for those who haven't met you or had an opportunity to interact with you, share a bit about who you are, where you're from, and more about what you do.
Sure. I grew up in and around Washington, D.C. from Rockville, Maryland, and I went to University of Maryland where I studied radio, television, and film. I became a television producer in 24-hour news, documentaries for ESPN, C-SPAN, which made me the First Ladies Man, and PBS, and had a lot of fun and traveling in that. And that brought me to one of my clients and customers and lifelong friends at Planet Technologies, Scott Tucker and Steve Winter, president and executive vice president. They and I are buddies from junior high school. And when I went off to play in a band and study radio, television, and film and make TV, they started an IT company, Planet Technologies. They became a customer and a client of mine as a multimedia producer. And then when it came time for the next chapter of my adult life and career, there was no other home for me but Planet Technologies, and all the work that I'd done with my own projects has led me to be the director of marketing at Planet Technologies, where I get to tell the great stories of Planet, the Planet people, and the customers and work we do together.
And it's actually a pretty well-known company here in the DC area. I think I have a couple of federal agencies I've worked for have done business with Planet.
Oh, very much so. I find that on a lot of my travels, people are like, it's funny, I was on a boat last summer, a friend, and we're on the Chesapeake, and he's like, what are you doing now, Oak? A college buddy of mine. I said, oh, I'm director of marketing at Planet Technology. He goes, Planet Technology is out of Germantown? I said, yeah, I mean, we're all over, but Germantown's the headquarters. And he goes, I think they're doing some work, and I think they're doing really well for us. Let me call a guy. And he calls up, and he's like, yeah, that's you guys. You guys are killing it. And there's a lot of people I've run into who are like, oh yeah, I knew them and worked with them and we partnered with them, or they did this at my company or agency or whatever. It's got a great reputation and a wonderful company.
Awesome. So how did you get this idea and develop the First Ladies Man?
I stumbled into it. You know, I was to sing my own praises a little bit, a bit of a beast in television, in that I could be a one-man band. I knew how to do a lot of different things: camera, microphone, enough lighting to get myself in trouble, writer, researcher, things like that. And C-SPAN isn't a high budget organization. They are a .org, and they do things on the fly a lot, well thought out and wonderful. And the level of in-depth research and intelligence that is contained in everything that C-SPAN does is just remarkable. One of my favorite organizations that I've ever worked with. And when C-SPAN, a friend of mine that I produced some other news programs with, said, hey, I want you to come over and work on my news show, the morning show, Washington Journal. They had someone out on maternity leave. And she said, there's something down the pike that's coming that would probably be of interest. You'll have to apply just like everyone else. It's not a gimme, but that ended up to be the First Ladies Influence and Image series that C-SPAN did with the White House Historical Association. It's kind of a follow-up or piggyback to their Pulitzer Prize winning, actually, a presidential series they did with C-SPAN creator, founder Brian Lamb, which was just a remarkable series. And they wanted to do something different and cover the First Ladies. And I got tapped to be the series producer, the field producer. They went to every home, library, church, school, birthplace, cemetery, train station for every First Lady at the time, Martha Washington through Michelle Obama. I've continued on through the current Dr. Jill Biden, and I'm the First Ladies Man.
That is amazing. I mean, it's great that when you work for an organization and a really cool opportunity comes up and you know, you either fall into it or you compete for it, right, and get that opportunity.
Well, I was, you know, I was fortunate in that I did have the chops. You know, I'd done everything but editing, and they taught me the editing. I had all the other stuff, you know, the camera work, the writing, the field travel, the field work. I'd done some pretty wild stuff in Africa, South Africa, Mozambique, where we were on the ground for like 9 days and brought back 15 pieces. 3 of them were multi-part series that won some awards and stuff like that. So I'd had this kind of guerrilla experience and this very small budget, small operation kind of thing. But I don't like to fail. Who does? But this was such a breakneck speed, and with as little resources as we could possibly, in the field. It was me, a camera, 2 microphones, 3 lights, total of 7 bags, which had to include the camera, my backpack, my clothes, other things that I needed, that I traveled around like this dog and pony show around the country, pinballing all over to get these stories of these women. And it was at such breakneck speed that I really didn't even have time to think about how insane this was and the schedule. But, it was just, it was a lot of work in a very short amount of time. It was during a government shutdown during the Obama administration. So all of the National Archives Administration libraries were closed. And that's everyone from Hoover on through Bush at the time. And all the national parks were closed, which were the historic sites. So it was just go, go, go. And at the end of it, I think that pace is what helped me to retain the information, because there wasn't even enough time for me to forget what I had learned almost.
So when you go into something like that, is there a specific set of criteria or questions or things you're trying to answer about a person?
That's a great question. We didn't know what the series was going to look like. We didn't want it to be exactly like the President's series, in which Brian Lamb went to every location and they did a live show from the location for every president. And, presidents are associated with, first ladies rather, are associated with their presidents, but they also have lives of their own. They have hometowns, and some have their own, libraries or museums or societies or associations. So it was pretty much start reading a book that started with Martha and finished with Michelle, and find out the coolest places with the coolest artifacts and exhibits and articles and books and letters and museums and libraries that pertain to every single first lady, and get to as many as you can before you have to come back and edit the pieces to go into the live show. There was a live 90-minute show for every first lady, or nearly every first lady. A couple got lumped in because of the brevity of their stint, and some first ladies actually died in office. 3 total died in office. And the husbands remarried. So there's multiple first ladies. There's more first ladies and hostesses than there are presidents. So that made the job extra tough. But we wanted to get every story that you wouldn't think of in all of these locations, and have this element of discovery, this archival, this like Indiana Jones peeling back the curtain on the Ark of the Covenant and going into vaults and going into private collections. And I just got everything that wasn't nailed down, to get every single piece on every first lady I could, and bring it back and get it edited to stick in the show for as much as we could use and as much as possible at every angle, literally.
Now, how does the show, which, I know was a few years ago, and how does that turn into the books you've written on it?
Yeah. So about halfway through, I kind of got this wild hair, because I'd been in and around Washington long enough. And I knew that you could turn a couple coins and have a good time doing public speaking. But a friend of mine that did public speaking, that I asked him when we were running, we went for a jog around the mall, and we were right by the Lincoln Memorial. I remember kind of cruising the reflecting pool, and he goes, "Oh, I got to go home and write this speech." I'm like, "What? You do that?" I said, "I want in on that." He goes, "You haven't done anything." And I said, "Well, what do you mean? I've done plenty, and I tell a good story. People like me. What do you mean?" He goes, "No, you got to do something significant. You got to do something that no one else has done, something that people want to hear about." And I'm like, well, I guess you got me there. I haven't really done anything that qualifies. And then halfway through this experience, I was starting to realize, kind of peeking out of the forest for the trees, like, there was no series like this. No one had done what I'd done. And it was confirmed to me by Brian Lamb of C-SPAN. He said that even he hadn't done what I'd done for first ladies. He'd done it for presidents, but no one has done this. So while there's a ton of people that know so much more about Eleanor Roosevelt on a whole that I do, or Hillary Clinton, or Nancy Reagan, or Martha Washington, whoever, they know nothing about Jane Pierce or Eliza Johnson or Helen Taft, and they certainly haven't been to all the locations. They haven't been to the Lucy Webb Hayes house in Chillicothe, Ohio, and seen her childhood bed. You walk those walks, and you walk the floorboards and run your hands on the railings. I started to realize that even for as much as I brought back, hours and hours and hours and days of material, most of that's on the edit room floor, because all of these locations got turned into like 2-minute pieces, 90-second pieces, 3-minute pieces at best. And then there was the live interview of the hosts and the experts and the authors and the not me's. But
Right.
then I decided to tell the story, and the books are called Unusual for Their Time, On the Road with America's First Ladies. So I basically started with number 1 and told everything I learned and experienced, to where I slept, the cars I rented, the food that I had. You know, at the end of each chapter of the book, there's a neat little, when you're in Withville, Virginia, stop by and have a skeeter dog on the corner. and people had fun with it. And the books came after the talks, because I just wanted to talk about this, because people were so interested and hungry for this information about these women that we know, but we don't know, or we know some of them and we know what a first lady is. But again, we don't know every first lady, couldn't name them. And I couldn't have named them all before I started the thing. And now I feel like I'm like some weird cousin in every one of their families I know so much about.
That's amazing. And then, I mean, you did two books though, right? I mean, because it's such a large amount of information.
Yeah, and the way that happened was, once I decided, again, about halfway through the project, I was like, I think I'm going to be the first ladies man. And I spoke to a friend of mine, and now a friend of mine, at the Eisenhower Museum and Library in Abilene, Kansas. We were walking from the museum to the library, and I saw a sign for someone that was coming to speak, and it dawned on me. I said, I've got a story to tell. And I said, Sam, would you be like, if when this whole series is over, if I came back and talked about everything I'd learned and all the places I went, is that like even a thing? And she's like, oh my God, that would be incredible. She's like, no one's probably done what you've done. I'm like, yeah, well, that's what I'm starting to figure out here. So I started speaking before I even wrote the books. And then someone said, well, write books, you get more speeches, you can make more money speaking, you become this author, you become more credited, or street cred, or, you know, the credentials. And I didn't know what to do. So I just decided, well, you start at the beginning. Here's what I did. Here's why I did it. Here's who I did it with, whose idea it was. What a great opportunity. What a life-changing opportunity. And you start with Martha, and you just make them I guess what I was so surprised by was how influential they are. How important they are to their husbands' lives, their husbands' careers, their husbands' administrations, thus America, American history, thus the modern world. If George Washington had not married Martha Dandridge Custis, the widow Martha Dandridge Custis, we would not be America. That's how important and significant she is to the story. He needed her influence. He needed her social standing. He needed her to watch the wealth and the property and everything while he was doing. If she couldn't do it, he would have had to. If he had to do that, he couldn't have started the revolution. He wrote in letters, I need my wife at my side. I don't think straight without her. She went to every winter, nearly every winter encampment of the Revolutionary War, as an advisor to her husband, as a sounding board. These women are the most powerful and influential, among the most powerful and influential unelected, unpaid women in the world that have shaped the modern world. Without the United States of America, everything looks different. McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Apple Computers, Microsoft, IT, Harley Davidson, Coca-Cola, you know, it's a different world, a global world economy, good, bad, and otherwise. Every major conflict in the 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st centuries it's a different ball game if America is not America.
Wow. That is so true and so fascinating at the same time. My mom, like in my family, my mom is visiting all the presidents' homes, right?
Love it.
And you get that, but you get both the flavor, right? The stories. And as I think I mentioned before we started recording, both my mom and my grandmother are huge into American history and the first ladies and the presidents. And so this resonates with a lot of people. And were you surprised that your book resonated as well as it did?
Very much so. And here's another thing that kind of, I guess, in thinking back on it, I've said this a couple times, but it's never really forefront on my mind, is that the experts were surprised by this perspective. Like when you went to Peacefield in Quincy, Massachusetts, for Abigail Adams and Louisa Catherine Adams. You know, that person who's been there talking about the Adamses forever leads off with President Adams did this and President Adams did. So when we walk into the room with me for the C-SPAN series, I don't want to know about the president. We've heard too much about them already. Tell me what Abigail did, which Abigail secured the home and purchased it and worked the real estate deal while Adams was off doing the Continental Congress. I mean, the whole house purchased. Then she had the floors lowered instead of the ceilings risen because she wanted it high. I mean, just amazing. And the letters that go back and forth, the political advice that she would give her husband, and all this other stuff. But when we're talking about this, it's like the experts, the curators, the docents, the tour guides, the directors, they know this stuff, but it's not what they lead with. It's not their everyday. And so I was happily forcing them to rethink their own collections and their own sites. And then when I would come back, I mean, I've done some pretty fun, neat stuff in television. But no one tired of this subject. Everyone wanted to know more, and they wanted to know, who's your favorite first lady? And gosh, you held a letter written by Martha Washington, but I thought she burned all her letters. Well, she did, but not the ones she sent out. And Abigail Adams kept everything. So I held a letter that Martha Washington wrote to Abigail Adams. I've seen things that are in collections that are too fragile to put out. Gravity and oxygen is destroying these collections, and C-SPAN and the White House Historical Collection. There's no better reputation out there. And so everyone just wanted to show me everything. Some people actually got grief from supporters and the public saying, how come you don't put this stuff out? You're showing him all your good stuff and we don't get to see it, including the Smithsonian. And I'm like, there's just so much out there. It all can't possibly get out, and it all can't possibly be on display or talked about in these series. So I need to keep talking about it and keep talking about it. And people just kept asking for more. And I'm like, boy, I got something here.
Yeah, absolutely. So what has been the reception for both your books? Has it been received widely by this community?
It really has. Again, it's a different perspective. I'm not a historian. And Anita McBride is Laura Bush's former chief of staff. She's involved in congressional studies at American University. She's on the White House Historical Association. She was part of the series as a representative of the White House Historical Association. And she said to me, we had lunch and I was telling her about what I was about to do. And she said, this is so great because don't take this the wrong way. You're the everyday man. You're not the vessel. I said, oh, Anita, trust me, I know. I am not. If you were a central casting in Hollywood, we go, we need a historian. Wait, we need a first ladies historian. We need you're not picking me. I'm not the physical package. I'm not I don't have the experience. I didn't study it in school. And this is a regular guy, an American, albeit an American that grew up outside of Washington, D.C., a television producer whose job it is to learn these things, but still the average American man who is now fascinated by the capabilities and the natural aptitude and intelligence and wherewithal of these women to be this influential and this important to the story. So I'm the poster boy for like why everyone should care about this. It's like women know this. Women know how great they are. Women leaders know they've been part of this project, but guys don't. Right. And young girls don't know that there's this potential there. And young boys don't know that girls have this potential. I mean, if you think about it, the women's struggle for equality, for voting, for jobs, for equal pay, for all the other stuff that goes, leadership. I mean, most other countries in the world have had women presidents and prime ministers long before us, and the American political landscape has been just a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant boys club,
right,
for hundreds of years, and yet we're it, we're the superpower, we're in charge, we're leading, all this. But so many other people are ahead of us in that demographic and things. President Obama, the first African-American president in the 2000s, and there's never been a Jewish president. There's only been one Catholic. I don't think Trump, he was Episcopalian. His wife assimilated with the Catholic Church, but just Kennedy. Um, so it's so strange that we're so ahead of our time and so advanced, yet not in areas. And when I saw this, and again, I grew up with a good education, Montgomery County, Maryland, going to the Smithsonian as field trips and all the stuff. My mother was a school teacher, all the stuff. When I go to Williamsburg as an adult and I'm like, I had no idea Martha Washington had this influence. I didn't know who Letitia Tyler was. I didn't know that Thomas Jefferson, his wife had died 20 years before. He didn't have a first lady. The third president of the United States doesn't have a first lady. And his daughter steps in and Dolly Madison helps out. And you're just like, where is all this coming from? And how did I not know it? Because we're not taught it.
Right.
And I thought, if people want to listen, I love talking, so let's have some fun. And putting this perspective out and putting the books, volume 1 is Martha Washington through Ida McKinley, the 1700s and 1800s. Volume 2, which ended up to be season 2, is Edith Roosevelt I published the second book in 2016. So Melania Trump's in there, not the full administration, but the fact that she's there and what I might think she'd do and where she might be an asset and where she might lean and what she might do as the first lady. And I was pretty spot on. I must say I did okay with that. But it has been well received, surprisingly so. And the people that wanted to endorse the book and write about the book and have me on for interviews and people like you, it's incredible. I truly feel like this strange vessel for this information, because I walk out on stage when I get introduced at a live speech and stuff, and people kind of turn their head. They're like, not what I was expecting. And they get the joke, first ladies, man. They get that it's cheeky and right. The speeches are fun and they're engaging like what you and I are doing now. And the books, I don't know any other way to write. So I write the way I speak. So people have a pretty good time with them.
Well, it makes a great story, right? At the end of the day, that's what you're looking for, is a great story. So what about this experience, right? You've developed this project. It went from a TV show to books. You've done some podcasting on it. You've done some YouTube videos. You have a really great website with information. What about this entire experience do you think has made you a better person? If you flash back to when before you did this and got this passion over this topic to now and how it's changed your life, how has that, improved you or made you better?
It's a great question. It goes back to the fact that, I had a great mom. My mom was a wonderful, wonderful lady. She had her faults. I can point them out. She didn't hang the moon, but pretty close. She was a good lady. My father has always taught me respect. It was always more important to remember my mother's birthday than my father's birthday. So that was always there. But realizing how important women and men are. I mean, this is us together. And I think that's what's made me a better person in the way I look at professional people, the way I look at friends, the way I look at new people that I meet, the way I look at people on TV, movies, everything, is that it's really made me understand that all human beings have something to offer. It does not matter if you're a man, you're a woman. It doesn't matter your religion, your color, your creed, what, everyone has something to offer. Now, there's dingbats like and chuckleheads in every color, shape, form, creed, whatever. Everyone's got them, but everyone has something to offer. Everyone should be given a fair chance, because you just never know where that bank of intelligence and ideas and resources going to come from. By cutting women out of the picture for as long as the world has, we've been cutting out half of our intelligence and half of our resources and half of our potential greatness. So when you utilize all your resources, all your team members, everything, it's made me a better team player, I think, in general, and to just respect more so everyone's opinion and know that everyone's got value, at least at first. Don't judge a book by the cover. Whoever walks in the room, let them open their mouth before you think anything.
Those are good words to live by for sure. So what's next in this project of yours? You have anything on the horizon?
Yeah, it's a great question, a question I get often, and I always think it's a great question. I always give the same answer. Nothing's next. This is it. I'm the first ladies man, and we keep making new first ladies every 4 to 8 years. Hopefully soon, we're on the cusp. We've got our first second gentleman, but there'll be a first gentleman eventually. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a first spouse or first partner in some, the role is there as the spouse or significant other of the president of the United States, whoever that president is. Mm-hmm. So I've done the legwork. I've done the 40 plus chapters now. So I just have to write a new chapter every 4 to 8 years, which is, I can handle that workload. There's nothing like writing a book. It's truly something that I never really gave much thought to or imagined that I would do, but it never gets old to have that shipment come to the front porch and to open it up. And I had a woman come up to me at a speech, and she said, "You're not going to be very pleased with me." And I said, "Well, I don't know you, so why would I?" She said, "Well, I read your book." And I was like, "Oh boy, here she's gonna let me have it." She didn't like a chapter, she didn't like something, and I said, "Oh, okay, what'd you think?" She goes, "Oh, I loved it. I absolutely loved it, but I didn't buy it." And I said, "Oh, well, did someone lend it to you?" She said, "No, I checked it out of the library." And I literally, I had to pause. I said, "Ma'am, not only am I not angry with you, you're my favorite person in the world right now. If you had told me a year ago that I would have a book in a library that someone could check out and read, it's phenomenal. It's just something I never would have imagined." And so these women continue to inspire me. We continue to make more of these women, or again, the person who will be in that role. And so I want to keep learning more. I didn't get to every location for every first lady. Since the series, I've gone back to Dolly Madison's birthplace, Lucy Hayes's birthplace. I just came this past weekend from Plains, Georgia, where I celebrated Rosalind Carter's 95th birthday with Rosalind Carter, releasing 250 butterflies into the garden at Plains, in Plains, Georgia. There's still so much to do. There's still so much that will be created. I love the message, and I love where it's going, and I love the reception, and it's just fun. I mean, it's like, this is passion for me, and people seem to pick up on that, and I just love every minute of it.
Well, I'm definitely picking up on it, Andrew, and I've really enjoyed this conversation. And I thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your passion as the First Ladies Man.
Thank you for having me, Jeremy. It's been a pleasure.